यम देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां हयग्रीवम् उपास्महे. Namaste. Good evening to everyone, all the distinguished guests, panelists, and also the attendees today. I will be speaking about various philosophical concepts and attributes that are present in Indian scriptures, especially the Brahma Sutras, Upanishads, and Bhagavad Gita. When we talk about philosophy, be it epistemology or metaphysics of Indian philosophical systems, everything has a common base, that is the Vedas. From the Vedas, Upanishads are also a derivative as well as a branch which are to be studied for any kind of philosophical reasoning. Not to mention about the fact that Bhagavad Gita plays a major role as being similar to Bible of Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma. Also, the Brahma Sutras are scriptures which are projected in the philosophical system, especially when we talk about doctrinal or theological interpretation of scriptures, which is known as Darshana Shastra. So let me just start with an introduction about Brahma Sutras, then I will talk about Upanishads, and then we will move on towards Bhagavad Gita. So basically, when we start with the epistemology or metaphysics of Indian philosophical system, we have what is known as Prasthanatrayi. This is the name given to three prominent scriptures which form the basis of developing any kind of Darshana Shastra in Sanatana Dharma. Prasthanatrayi means the main three starting point of scriptures through which we can arrive at interpretation of spiritual aphorisms. Brahma Sutra, Bhagavad Gita, and Upanishads form the three parts of Prasthanatrayi, out of which Brahma Sutra is considered the major one. Each of them are given equal importance. However, everybody starts with the Brahma Sutra, which is considered at the PhD level to identify the spiritual information given in our scriptures, then the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita. So what are these Brahma Sutras? Brahma Sutras are nothing but collection of sutras. Sutras are sentences in the form of aphorisms that are related to spirituality. Brahman, the very word in Sanskrit, means to expand. It is also given the meaning of knowledge. It also ascribes itself to the Supreme Lord, universal being, and so on. So Brahma Sutras means knowledge about Brahman, information about Brahman. Brahma Sutras was composed by Vedavyasa, who is also known as Badarayana, who was the main sage, seer, considered as an avatar of Vishnu, who divided the Vedas into four, divided the scriptures into Smritis and Shrutis, Itihasas, Puranas, and so on. He developed this Brahma Sutras with a view of aggregating all the philosophical knowledge that is available in the Vedas. The Vedas are filled with knot of knowledge that is not easily graspable until everyone studies the whole scriptures as such. Now, these Brahma Sutras come as a summarization of the whole philosophical tenets. Brahma Sutras are also known as Vedanta Sutras. Vedanta means Veda plus Anta, which is the internal aspect or the final meaning of the Vedas. That is why it is known as Vedanta Sutra. It is also known as Shariraka Sutra, which is related to the knowledge of self, the Atman within. And this is also known as Bhikshu Sutra. Bhikshu refers to monks or sannyasis, ascetics. So Vedanta Sutras, Bhikshu Sutras or Shariraka Sutras are other names given to Brahma Sutras. Brahma Sutras consist of philosophy, What is philosophy? To identify the difference between the mind, body, and soul, to identify the nature of soul, to distinguish between the supreme soul and the individual soul, and so on. It also has information related to epistemology. Epistemology is the knowledge about how sustenance happens through the existence of the Jivatman, the soul within each body, how it can be studied under various characteristics, and so on. Then we have the metaphysics of this world, to talk about creation of this world. What are the important aspects that decide the creation, sustenance, and dissolution of the world, and so on. Then we have spiritual goals ascribed, what we call as Chaturvarga Phala, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, which is essential for a human being to fulfill and then liberate himself from the cycle of birth and death. These are the spiritual goals that they talk about. So what is the overall idea of these Brahma Sutras is to give knowledge to the person who is either in search of the absolute truth, who is in search of the path towards liberation, that is from the cycle of birth and death, or to the person who is devoted to a specific deity. So these are different people who follow different paths, and they have this inquisitive nature of identifying the supreme being, and thereby the Brahma Sutras give the information related to this. So what is that forms the basis of Brahma Sutra? There are three things. One is Parabrahman, which is the supreme being. Second one is the Jivatman, which is the Atman which resides inside every body. And then the Prakriti, that is the materialistic nature that is available to us today. So the goal of Brahma Sutras is to make any person realize his own true self, to make him identify himself not with this material body, but the spiritual body. So based on how things can be propagated, the Brahma Sutra is divided into sections, what we call as chapters in English. Those are known as adhyayas in Sanskrit. So Brahma Sutra is basically divided into 4 adhyayas. And then there are 189 adhikaranas. Adhikaranas are nothing but case studies. Let us say you want to develop any theory. The theory should be supported by certain proof. This proof is obtained from case studies. It could be quantitative analysis or qualitative analysis or any other kind of tabulations that is available through inference and so on. So this is where these adhikaranas come into picture and helps the reader to understand and acknowledge the fact that Brahma Sutras are giving a clear disposition on whatever knowledge is transferred. Then there are sentences which are known as sutras. Sutras are nothing but aphorisms or sentences which state certain facts as it is. There are 555 sutras overall in the Brahma Sutras. Now, let me just give you an example of each one of these. Come to the Adhyaya part. As I told you, there are 4 Adhyayas. They are categorized as Samanvaya Adhyaya, Avirodha Adhyaya, Sadhana Adhyaya, and Phala Adhyaya. Samanvaya Adhyaya relates to reconciliation or understanding of different concepts that are available in the philosophical tenets. As I told you before, let's say, who is Jivatman? Who is Paramatman? What is the relation between the Jivatman and Paramatman? How creation happens? How destruction happens? How dissolution happens? What is the idea behind the cycle of birth and death? These are explained in Samanvaya Adhyaya. Then you have Avirodha. Avirodha is related to answering questions that are posed by different philosophies, be it Charvaka philosophy, it is a materialistic philosophy, be it Buddhism, be it Jainism, be it Mimamsa philosophy, be it Agamic or Tantric philosophy, or any other texts that are outside the boundary of the Vedas or Shrutis. This comes under the Avirodha Adhyaya section. Then you have the Sadhana Adhyaya section. In the Sadhana Adhyaya, the paths towards liberation, path towards moksha is explained. There you have various paths. Let us say there is this path through jnana, knowledge, path through bhakti, through devotion, path through karma, by performing certain deeds. It could be good deeds, it could be rituals and so on. And path through, pranayama, yoga, hatha yoga and so on. Performing certain, certain actions like Ashtanga yoga. These are all defined, meditation and so on. These are all defined in the Sadhana Adhyaya, the paths towards achieving liberation. And then there is this Phala Adhyaya, just like we have Phala Shruti in all our Sahasranamas or any stotras. Similarly, there is this Phala Adhyaya, that is the last section in the Brahma Sutras, which talks about different fruits that are obtained from different actions. Let us say I do certain type of pranayama. The phala for this is obtaining a good health, having a great physical body associated. These are some of the information that are given in the Phala Adhyaya. Coming to Adhikaranas. There are many Adhikaranas. Let's say in each of these Adhyaya, they are definitely not equal. There are unequal Adhikaranas, different case studies, different number of case studies. Just to give you an example of one of the Adhikarana, there is this Swapna Adhikarana that is related to dream state, Swapnavastha, where in the Brahma Sutra, they talk about whether the Swapnavastha is an internal state or an external state or an intermediary state, and whether it is real or unreal, whether the fruits of action available in the Swapnavastha, the dream state, whether it is real or unreal, the fruits of the action, and whether the effect of Swapnavastha, dream, is seen in the real world that we reside in, whether the effects of the real world exist in the Swapnavastha, in the subconscious level, and so on. All these information are clearly provided in the Swapnadhikarana. And talking about sutras, example of certain sutras, the first sutra of the first Adhikarana states, Athato Brahma Jignasa. The first Adhikarana is Jignasa Adhikaranam. Athato Brahma Jignasa is the first sutra, where the first question is, now we will talk about Brahma. Brahma is the supreme being, the unmanifest reality that exists, which is responsible for the total creation of this world. So they talk about that there. Also, what are the hot topics that are discussed in Brahma Sutra are as listed below. First one is Vishaya, to know about what is there in the Brahma Sutras, whether it is related to action, whether it is related to understanding, it could be interpretation. These all come under Vishaya, the topics of discussion. Second one is Vismaya. Vismaya are those topics which cannot be comprehended by human understanding. There are many things that are available in nature today, but still man has not been capable enough to identify them through his perception of sense organs. Let us say, for example, microorganisms like bacteria were never known, during ancient times. With modern science, they came to be identified day by day, and then you have lot of bacteria available, virus available, and we are able to see it through microscopes. This is because human understanding is limited and it keeps evolving day by day. Brahma Sutras in the Vismaya section talk about that. There are many things which cannot be perceived. Humans have not been yet advanced enough to perceive such things. So such topics or things of interest are discussed under Vismaya. Then it also talks about Purva Paksha. Purva Paksha is nothing but a siddhanta, a theology that is proposed by a person, which has to be refuted, on which there could be understanding, reconciliation as well as refutation. Let us say you have, for example, you have the Charvaka Mata, which is a materialistic Mata, or it is also known as Lokayata Mata. In the theology of Charvakas, they state that there is no God, there is no Swarga, heaven, no Naraka, hell, but all you have to do is, Rudam Kritva Ghritam Pibet, means just borrow money and enjoy your life, doing all sort of bad things. The Brahma Sutras take this as the Purva Paksha and refute them. They state that this is not the right path. Human bliss or happiness is not just limited to materialistic enjoyment, but it is further beyond that. Then we have Siddhanta. Siddhanta is, once the Purva Paksha is refuted, you come up with your specific doctrine. The first part is known as Paramata Bhangam. Second part is known as Swamata Sthapanam. Paramata Bhangam is refutation of the opposite doctrine, and Swamata Sthapanam is firm establishment of your own Siddhanta or doctrine. And then you have Sangati. Sangati consists of various circumstances or instances during which you can prove your doctrine as well as disprove the opposite person's doctrine. So these are the important hot topics that are part of Brahma Sutra. Okay, Brahma Sutra was composed by Vedavyasa, and it is quite impartial in nature when it is dealing with Atma, Paramatma, and the relation between Atma and Paramatma. So various acharyas have given their own interpretation, because every acharya understands that Brahma Sutra has a specific interpretation and they want to propagate that interpretation alone. These commentaries are known as bhashyas, which are written upon the Brahma Sutras. For example, representing the Advaita Vedanta, Adi Shankaracharya has written a bhashya, which is known as Shariraka Bhashya. He follows the tradition of Gaudapadacharya. Ramanuja writes a bhashya known as Sri Bhashya. He follows the tradition of Bodhayana. Acharya Madhva, he writes a bhashya which is known as Gita Bhashya, which follows the tradition of Durvasa. Nimbarkacharya, who represents Bheda Bheda or Dvaita Mata, he writes a bhashya. Then Vallabhacharya represents Shuddha Dvaita, he writes a bhashya, Gopala Bhashya, and he also writes Anubhashya on the same. And then you have Baladeva Vidyabhushana in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who writes another bhashya known as Govinda Bhashya, which talks about Achintya Bheda Bheda. So basically, these are all different doctrines which tries to establish the relationship between the Jivatma and Paramatma. Some say both are same, some say they are partially same, partially different, some say they are totally different, some say they are both different and separate simultaneously. So there are different doctrines which each person goes forward and applies to the same. Now, having known so many things about how Brahma Sutras can be interpreted, so what are the applications that we find from Brahma Sutra? What is the overall advantage that we get from the Brahma Sutra from a philosophical viewpoint of interpretation? The first and foremost thing is spiritual wellness. Generally, what happens whenever you go through any Indian scriptures, it is you have the physical wellness first, then the emotional or psychological wellness, then you have the spiritual wellness. But for Brahma Sutras, it is the other way around. You go to the spiritual wellness aspect, you travel to the psychological, and then you come to the physical wellness. What is the spiritual wellness? Exact, easy identification of the Atman inside. To identify that this Atma is not destructible, it is neither created or destroyed. The body and the Atma is not same, they both are different. Also, whatever karmas we are doing, they have the reactions associated, and we have to face the fruits or phala of all our actions. Thus, we have to ensure ourselves that we are free from the cycle of birth and death. This is the spiritual wellness aspect. Attain liberation or moksha. Now, once we know this, come down, descending order, psychological wellness. In order to obtain moksha, how should we prepare our mind? We have to prepare our mind in such a way that we will not get attached to any materialistic desires. We will ensure that wherever we want, we will do our work as it is and not expect anything. To make our mentality work in such a way that we are in the mid of society, still we are being detached from all the materialistic desires, thus ending our suffering in this materialistic world. Once we, the mind is prepared such, we start working in that same way. Mind is the controller of everything. So our work also follows the same pattern. We will do our work without any expectation. We ensure that we have a right type of food, right type of action, and a right type of thought in our day-to-day lives, thus ensuring our physical wellness. So this is the overall overview on the Brahma Sutra aspect when we relate it to wellness. Now, the second part of this Prasthana Trayi is Upanishads. Upa means near, nearby. Nishad means to sit. Upanishad means to sit near the Guru and get to know about the facts that are available in the Vedas, which are related to philosophy. Upanishads are also known as Akshipurusha Vidya, or they are also known as Vedanta. Akshipurusha Vidya means that which are seen through the eyes of the Supreme Being, to identify the same aspect of relation between the Jivatma and Paramatma. They talk about the same things that we told in Brahma Sutras: the philosophy, epistemology, metaphysics, a concept of creation, dissolution, impermanence of material realm, permanent state of spiritual realms, eternal bliss, moksha, liberation, and so on. Upanishads are considered large in number. They are segregated and compiled into 1008 Upanishads in total. Some Upanishads are definitely later day additions or interpolations, which came to be written during the 7th century, 8th century, till the 16th and even till the 18th century, they came to be written. Out of which 108 Upanishads are considered authentic, which were not written but came in the oral tradition. Then out of which again segregation happens to identify which which Upanishads actually talk about the philosophical tenets. There are many Upanishads which talk about rituals also, like how do you wear the bhasma, how do you wear the nama, gopi chandana, adorn yourself with rudraksha, how to worship certain devatas. These are also given in the Upanishads. Out of which core tenets that are described about philosophy are in 10 Upanishads, which are known as Dashopanishad. Of course, the categorization also happens based on the type of devatas that are invoked. Like I told about in the section of the Tantras, we have Shaiva, Vaishnava, Shakta, Ganapatya, Saura, Kaumara. So the same rule applies here as well. So you also have Upanishads which are known as Samanya Upanishad, which are not, which are neutral, which do not direct towards a specific deity, but talk about the concept of Jivatma and Paramatma. So, as I was telling about Dashopanishad, the most important Dashopanishads or 10 Upanishads are Ishavasya Upanishad, Tenopanishad, Kathopanishad, Prashnopanishad, Mundakopanishad, Mandukyopanishad, Aitariyopanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Sometimes Shvetashvatara Upanishad also is considered an important Upanishad, and it forms the 11th Upanishad in this major 10 Upanishads. Various acharyas of various lineages, Guru Paramparas or Sampradayas like Ramanuja, Shankara, Madhva, Vallabha, and so on have written commentaries on these Upanishads. One by one, I'll just summarize in short about what exactly is available in each of these Upanishads. The first Upanishad is Ishavasya Upanishad. Isha means the Supreme Lord. Ishati, one who protects, one who takes care. Ishavasya means that which belongs to the Supreme Lord, in that which the Supreme Lord resides. Vasya, Vasatiti. So the Ishavasya Upanishad starts with the verse stating that Ishavasya midam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat. Means this world belongs to the Supreme Person, Supreme Being. And therefore, the first concept of karma sannyasa yoga, which is to do actions without any expectation, is explained here. Tena tyaptena bhunjita ma krita kasya sviddhanam. Always do your work, enjoy the benefits, but do it without any expectations. Do not look for others' property. Do not steal from others. Starting with this basic concept of a societal structure, it moves forward towards explaining creation and dissolution like sambhuti, asambhuti. Then it also talks about the non-eternal nature of this body. It states bhasmantakam idam shariram. This material body definitely ends into ashes. Therefore, as long as you live, do good karma and help others, entrust a better society. The second Upanishad is Kena Upanishad. Kena means from whom. From whom is this Upanishad? So Kena also refers to the Parabrahman, Supreme Being. Kena Upanishad, most of you have come across the information in Kena Upanishad, which is like a story where Indra, Vayu and Agni, they fight against the Rakshasas, the demons, and they become victorious and they praise themselves. But then what happens? Ultimately, one Yaksha comes and he states, you are not the doer, it is the Brahman, the Supreme Being who is inside you along with your Atma, that is making you victorious over different Rakshasas. So this is the concept that is explained in the Kena Upanishad. The Kena Upanishad also states, when you do upasana or invocation on various deities, it is not you who are doing, but it is the Atman which is enabling you to do. It is not the ears that you are hearing through, but it is the energy through which your ears are made to hear sounds. It is the energy through which your eyes are made to visualize things. So these concepts are explained in Kena Upanishad. Kathopanishad is a dialogue between Yama and Nachiketa. Most of you know the story. And Yama asks Nachiketa whether he wants to have all the material wishes, wealth and so on. But Nachiketa says he is not behind any material wealth, but he is behind the supreme knowledge, the supreme wealth, understanding of the Jivatma. It is in this Upanishad that Yama gives him the importance of how to utilize this sensory organs to ensure his spiritual wellness. Then Prashna Upanishad is a collection of conversations between rishis and rishikas like Paipalada, Aruni, Uddalaka, Gargi, Maitreyi, and so on. They talk about what is Agni, what is Vayu, what is Varuna. They also question about what is this Jivatma, what is its capacity, what is its boundary. Answers are given very nicely in this Prashna Upanishad. Then you have Mundaka Upanishad. Mundaka Upanishad, Mundaka means related to a monk, a clean shaven head, which is usually a sannyasi. So Mundaka Upanishad talks about sannyasa yoga, detachment from this world. It also talks about, it gives an example of a tree, a branch of a tree on which there are two birds sitting side by side. One bird is eating a fruit while the other bird is just watching. The bird which is eating the fruit is the Jivatma, which eats the fruits of its karma, while the Paramatma is the other bird, which is just a silent spectator. Mandukya Upanishad. Manduka means a frog. Mandukya means the Rishi Manduka in the form of a frog realized this Upanishad through the Parabrahman. In the Mandukya Upanishad, you have information like we have our standard quotation for our country, Satyameva Jayate. Satyameva Jayate Nanritam, which means truth alone wins and lie does not, untruth does not win. So these statements are given in the Mandukya Upanishad. Then you have the Aitariya Upanishad. Aitariya Upanishad was revealed to a Rishi, Atri, and his lineage, which form the Aitariya portion. In the Aitariya Upanishad, it talks about the nature of Brahma. It says Vijnana, science is Brahma, the supreme being. Prajnana is Brahma. The consciousness, state of consciousness is Brahma. It also talks about Pindanda, microcosm, Brahmanda, macrocosm, and so on. Then you have the Taittiriya Upanishad. Taittiriya Upanishad was revealed to the Rishi Tittiri. Tittiri is the name of a bird. The Rishi took the form of a bird and it was explained to him as Taittiriya Upanishad. Taittiriya Upanishad is very beautiful. It talks about both social constructs like Matra Devo Bhava, Pitra Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, Atithi Devo Bhava. These informations are given in the Taittiriya Upanishad. Also, there is a dialogue between Bhrigu and Varuna. They talk about what is Brahma. They discuss who is the Supreme Brahma. They say, okay, is this mind the Supreme Brahma? No. Is this Atma Supreme Brahma? No. Is this organ Supreme Brahma? No. Is this science, Vijnana, is this the Supreme Brahma? No. Is eternal bliss Supreme Brahma? No. Ultimately, they say these are all part of the Supreme Brahma. So these informations are given. Chandogya Upanishad. Chandogya Upanishad is it comes from the Samaveda, and in the Chandogya Upanishad they talk about it is also a series of dialogues between Uddalaka, Aruni, Romaharshana Sutta, Krishna, our Krishna, the Lord Krishna. He is also part of the discussion in the Chandogya Upanishad, where beautiful verses are given in identifying the nature of connection between Jivatma and Paramatma. It states the Paramatma is like a sea, Jivatmas are different rivers, and the Jivatma all run towards the Paramatma in the form of rivers and join the Paramatma ultimately. Just an example. These are all very big Upanishads. I'm just giving you a small examples. Then we have the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which is part of Shukla Yajurveda, which is a series of dialogue between Yajnavalkya Rishi and King Janaka. There it is a dialogue and a debate between various rishis and Yajnavalkya. Gargi, Maitri, all these Rishikas, they talk with Yajnavalkya and they question him. Who is this Jivatma? Again, they question. They say whether air is Jivatma, whether fire is Jivatma, whether materialistic, non-living thing is Jivatma, whether living thing is Jivatma, plants, so on. Whether Jivatma is same as Brahmanda. All these questions are discussed and Yajnavalkya beautifully answers. He states that Atman, which enables, which gives power to any individual body, it is the Jivatma. So, talking about all these 10 Upanishads, there is also this Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Shvetashvatara Upanishad means the Upanishad of the white horse. Here, Shvetashvatara Upanishad does not have any swaras associated, but it is in the form of four-lined mantras, in which they talk about more information is given about the Paramatma. They say Paramatma is the Mayavi, and Maya is his power, and through Maya he creates everything. Everything dissolution happens in Maya, and Shiva, sometimes they identify the Lord Rudra or Shiva is the Paramatma, sometimes Vishnu is the Paramatma. Beautiful quotations are given. Also, they talk about how creation happened. Is it through the Ichha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Jnana Shakti of the Paramatma? All these informations are given. So this is an overview in which I would like to summarize that Upanishads not only talk about social structure, but also philosophical aspects, metaphysics of creation in Sanatana Dharma. The final thing that I want to talk about is about Bhagavad Gita. Every follower of Sanatana Dharma, as well as probably most of the, I think 99% in this world are knowledgeable about the name Bhagavad Gita at least. Everybody knows it is the holy scripture of the Hindus, the followers of Sanatana Dharma. Bhagavad Gita apparently is the holy scripture, but it is not the only scripture of the Sanatana Dharma followers. It is the Sara or the essence of all the information that is available in the scriptures of Sanatana Dharma, be it Vedas, Itihasas, Puranas, and so on. Bhagavad Gita is known as Gitopanishad because it forms the creamy layer of all the Upanishad vakyas or words, sentences. Bhagavad Gita is a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, as we all know. The Mahatmya or the greatness of Bhagavad Gita is explained so well that they say Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogdha Gopalanandanaha, which means all the Upanishads are like cattle, cows, different cows, which yield different flavor of milk. Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogdha Gopalanandanaha. Dogdha means one who milks the cow. Gopalanandanaha is Sakshat Krishna himself, who represents the supreme being, supreme person. So he is the one who milks the, milks the cow, and he gets all the different kind of milk and mixes it together. And Arjuna forms the calf to which the milk is given. And the essence of the Vedas, the information from the Vedas is nothing but the pure milk that is obtained from mixing all these cow's milk. So this is the greatness that is explained of Bhagavad Gita. Having known this, Bhagavad Gita is also known as Ananta Gita, Hari Gita, Vyasa Gita, just Gita sometimes. There are different Gitas available like Uddhava Gita, Ashtavakra Gita, and so on. Why Bhagavad Gita played an important role in Indian philosophy is because of 2 points. One is it was spoken directly by Lord Krishna himself. Lord Krishna represents the Supreme Paramatma, while Arjuna represents the Jivatma. So various Upanishads, you always have conversation between different rishis, but here the Jivatma questions and Paramatma answers. What more information do we need? Nothing is unknown to the Paramatma, so all information is given here. This is the first point why Bhagavad Gita is considered important. The second point is it consists of essence of all Upanishads. There are various verses. It talks about social, solutions to social problems, economic problems, cultural problems, philosophical problems. Once I talk about problems, they are categorized into 3 types in Indian philosophy. They are Adidaivika, Adibhautika, and Adhyatmika. Adidaivika are disasters which are created from various, devatas, Adidaivika. Adibhautika is various disasters created from nature, materialistic, nature like floods and so on. And Adhyatmika is spiritual disaster. Spiritual disaster is nothing but ending up in ignorance. We misunderstand something and we do something else. We are not in the right path. We are not enlightened. Gone case. So this is what is Adhyatmika tapa. So these are known as tapatraya. So Gita Upanishad gives solutions to all these kinds of tapas, which are known as tapatraya. That is the reason why this is important. Uddhava Gita talks about just bhakti. Ashtavakra Gita just talks about spiritual wellness, philosophical things, but Bhagavad Gita completes everything. Okay. Having said that, this is a direct dialogue between the Jivatma and Paramatma. So where do we find this Bhagavad Gita? Definitely Bhagavad Gita is a part of Mahabharata. It appears in the Bhishma Parva, and it is also a Smriti. Vedas are Shruti, while this is a Smriti. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna himself states that the knowledge which he is giving to Arjuna has already been spoken to him eons ago during the time of creation to Surya. Vivaswan. Vivaswan is another name of Surya. It is also a Devata associated with Brahma. So the Lord has already spoken this, but again, due to time and circumstances, this is being repeated. So Bhagavad Gita is also considered as Anadi. Only thing is, manifestation has happened during Dwapara Yuga in the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. So how is this divided? Bhagavad Gita, more on the philosophical aspects, we'll go forward. There are totally 18 adhyayas, 18 chapters. Each of these chapters has different approaches towards ensuring wellness in the society in all 3 aspects: physical, psychological, and spiritual. So Arjuna says, okay, I am not able to fight because he says, I am following various dharma shastras. I am not able to fight because, the Kauravas, Dronacharya, Bhishmacharya, they are all at one end. I am not able to fight because they are my own relatives. If I am killing them, then I will incur sin and I will go to hell. I am confused. Should I fight for my self-respect? Because I, as a person, have to fight for Yudhishthira because the kingdom is ours, but it was, unrightfully taken from me by the Kauravas. What to do now? He is in a dilemma. This is the exact dilemma we as people are facing in today's world. We think, okay, today I will, study. Okay, done. I will get a first rank in whatever studies I have. Okay, done. I end up in a good job which pays lakhs per month. Okay, fine. What next? I'll get married. Oh, that's a great success in life. Next, what next? I'll give, birth to children. Okay, great. I'll ensure my children are comfortable. Then comes all the materialistic luxuries that I am looking out for. Today I have a house. Tomorrow I'll build a bigger house. That is not enough. I will want all kinds of luxuries. Fan is not enough. I want AC. I want to upgrade myself. I so that ends. There is no limit for satisfaction ultimately. Then okay, now children are studying. Okay, fine, but they're not studying properly. People ask questions. Oh, you're married. Okay, fine. What next? Oh, your children. Okay, how come? Are they studying? Are they studying well? Okay, fine. He is done. This continues. This is a cyclic process. Ultimately, you get your children married. Again, the same cycle repeats. Where is the time to analyze yourself? What have you done in life? This is one dilemma that everybody will face at some point of time. Second dilemma. You have everything, but still you are not satisfied. You are not happy. Some person said, sir, I have everything. I have a beautiful house, wife, but I'm missing the charm in life. Some person gives ideas. Oh, go to pub, do some dance there, do something there, and then you will have a better life. Then somebody says, no, don't go towards that path. Invest something in stock market, you earn more money. Some other person will say, no, you start doing this, start investing in something. Ultimately, there is no satisfaction, no happiness. So what is the whole point in leading a life? These are the kind of dilemmas that we are facing today. These dilemmas have already been addressed in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna gives solution to all of these. Let's say he starts with the Sankhya Yoga, what to do, what not to do. Then he talks about Karma Yoga. There are so many yogas. Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Mishra of Karma Sannyasa Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Jnana Karma Yoga, Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga is related to Dhyana Yoga, meditation. Vijnana Yoga, Akshara Yoga, Raja Yoga, Purushottama Yoga, then Sharanagati Yoga, Gauna Yoga, Kshetrajna Yoga, Sannyasa Yoga, so on. So various kind of people, for them, Bhagavad Gita is like a medicine. It gives them solace because various questions are answered. Let us say I am a person who is in the path of acquiring knowledge about the true self. I am questioning why this has been created. Why is this like this? Bhagavad Gita has answers there through Jnana Yoga, chapters defined in the Jnana Yoga. Karma Yoga. I am not at all happy. I am working day and night, but my boss is not, he's not praising me enough. He's not paying me enough. You're always, you have the dissatisfaction in life. Go read the Bhagavad Gita, study it. It will help you a lot. You get solutions. We all know the common phrase, Karmanyavadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. That is the basic thing that will help one to, have solace in himself and work in the right direction. Then there are some people, no, everything is fine in my life, but I'm missing something. I want to understand myself. What is the motto behind me being here? I want to connect to that cosmic power. There you have the Dhyana Yoga. Try to reach him through Dhyana, meditation. What are the different types of meditation? Then there is Akshara Yoga as well. Akshara Yoga is to identify the metaphysical nature of creation. to identify the concept of Jivatma, Paramatma. Who is Krishna? Krishna represents Paramatma. For some, he is a supreme person himself. So try to identify the greatness through various metaphors. Understand what is to be contemplated upon. Is it the manifested one or the unmanifested one? These come under Akshara Yoga. Then he talks about Purushottama Yoga, identifying the supreme person as it is, to identify his opulence, to concentrate on how I can comprehend his opulence. These information are given. Kshetrajna Yoga, Kshetra and Kshetrajna, that is the platform and the head of the platform who heads the department. Some information is given about this. Then you have Gauna Yoga. Okay, what are you supposed to do in life? What are the rules and regulations that you need to follow in order to have a healthy life? Krishna says these are specific set of gunas. You have the Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, Tamo Guna. Then there are Mishras. So what kind of food if you take, that will ensure that you have Sattva Guna? What are the qualities of Sattva Guna? Piousness, piety. What is the nature of Rajoguna? It is associated with spicy food, having a lot of materialistic instincts. And what is the nature of Tamoguna? Tamoguna loosely interprets towards ignorance. It is also related to animal-like nature, where you do not care about the other person, more related to Rakshasa Guna. Krishna explains all these things. What kind of food you have to take? What are the activities you have to develop in order to be a sattvic person? What are those activities which lead somebody towards being a rajasic or tamasic person? These are explained here. Krishna also talks about sannyasa yoga. Ultimately, Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam raja aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. Various acharyas have given different interpretations. The philosophy is, leave aside all kind of dharmas. If you are not able to follow, do your duty. Don't expect anything from that. If you feel that you are, helpless, come unto me. Ma mekam sharanam raja. Surrender unto me. Surrender to Krishna himself. Surrender to the supreme person inside Krishna, residing as Paramatma. Or, surrender to the Jivatma, which is identical to Paramatma. This is left to the doctrines. But ultimately, surrender to that supreme power. That supreme power, what we call today, is give it to the universe, you will get it back. The same concept was explained in Bhagavad Gita by Krishna. Aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshayishyam ma shuchaha. Therefore, when you have surrendered everything to that supreme person, don't waste your time in worrying. The universe will take care of it. I will take care of you. These are such beautiful statements that are given in our the scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, which improves the confidence of people to carry out their daily activities. This forms the gist of Indian scriptures. That is, everything is a part of life. Be it karma, be it jnana, be it dhyana, be it sannyasa. All these are part of life. Every person has to, inculcate such good habits so as to ensure wellness at different levels. So this is the, just a gist of Bhagavad Gita I just wanted to put forward. There are so many things which, require a lot of time in which we could be explained. So what is the whole idea of learning the Prasthanatrayi, Brahma Sutras, Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita? Again, is connected to the Vedas again. From the Vedas, all this knowledge is derived. Why? To make life easy. Veda Vyasa tried to, put all this information in Brahma Sutras. In Upanishad, different rishis and rishikas, they, started. Of course, Upanishads are part of Vedas, but considering Upanishads as part of Prasthanatrayi, they have spoken about philosophical tenets, and Bhagavad Gita definitely covers everything. So ultimately, the idea is to ensure wellness. We cannot study the Vedas, Ananta Vai Vedaha. Not everybody has access to that. Some people have access to Brahma Sutra, Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita. Go forward towards it. The idea is to ultimately reach the goal. Acharyas have come one more step forward. They have tried to give interpretation, tried to make it simpler. Some people feel that these things have been complicated. Some people say it is simple. But either way, people have put in effort to make things as easy as possible. So I think in this direction, the study of Brahma Sutras, Upanishads, and Bhagavad Gita will definitely be helpful for any Vedic student to ensure overall wellness. Thank you.